Marvel is no stranger to a good film. Honestly, they have produced some of the greatest films recently when it comes to superhero films. We don't talk about DC as much because Marvel has been the king, and ultimately, now with soon, the whole DC EU version, of the DC universe, ultimately rebooting now with Superman. I mean, we have, a variety of different directions that we're going in, where we have all these different movies from Marvel that are essentially trying to get the MCU back on track. So it's kind of a minefield. But considering that I just got out of seeing Thunderbolts in theaters, I do have to say it is looking like we are on track once again. Now, like I said, I did see this in theaters today. I wanted to, really get this movie, really be able to absorb this movie as much as I could. I wanted to see it opening night, but unfortunately, by the time that I wanted to go see the movie, most of the theaters were already sold out, so I had to settle for this Tuesday, the 6th. So ultimately, I did get to see the movie a little bit later than most other people, but luckily for me, I got it within the window of its release, so it wasn't that bad. But I will have to say, Marvel already essentially spoiled one of the biggest things in this movie. But if you are not aware of it, you're not someone who spends a whole lot of time on the internet, which I completely understand, and you don't really see anything Marvel related, or you don't follow Marvel or anything, I would like to say that before I get into what Marvel released and some other little spoilery details, I was going to make a non-spoiler thoughts video for you guys. But since Marvel has gone ahead and spoiled one of the biggest things of the movie, I just want to say that I'm going to be speaking on spoilers. That's what I want everybody to know. I will be covering some spoilers in this thoughts video. So just keep that in mind when, going into this thoughts video. But if you are the type of person who really does not care whether or not, details as such that, you really don't care about this movie that much and you would just want to sit back and listen to somebody's thoughts, then please stay along for the ride. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Now that we're already going to cover spoilers anyway, Marvel essentially did the spoiling for everybody. So they went ahead and released on Monday, May the 5th, which is bonkers to me because they could have released it, further down the line. And instead they decided that 5 to 6 days after the release, that's when you're supposed to spoil something that big. And for those of you who are not aware, Marvel went ahead and they posted this. Yes, that is the poster of the Thunderbolts with the new title, which is The New Avengers. Now, I thought that we were sitting down to see this reveal happen in the end credits. I was wrong. So ultimately, what they do is it's all a setup, and Valentina kind of sets them up so that they go after her, and as soon as they go to get her, she reveals that these are the new Avengers, and that Sentry was essentially, following along to see that these people were, working together, and ultimately they would become the new Avengers, which I love that idea, and I'll tell you why a little bit later. Now, something that I really have to say that I enjoyed about this movie was that obviously we have the heart of the film. Florence Pugh is the heart of this movie. She essentially is the person that, we are ultimately connecting with. She is who we want to connect with either way, because she is the protagonist, the main protagonist of the story. But her feelings, her emotions, all those things are fantastic. She is not only a great actress, but you feel for her. You feel for her connection, her downside, specifically when it comes to her, being sad about not being able to accomplish, the task at hand happily. Again, this movie really does, and mind you, this is something that everybody has been saying, but it is more so a big theme in this movie is depression and anxiety and, self-worth. A lot of these themes are strong in this movie. They're very, I wouldn't say this movie is a heavy movie, but I would say that the theme in and of itself is very well covered in this film. So I absolutely love that fact. The fact that they're able to build Yelena with so much heart and so much care. And you can tell that the writers and the people working on this movie really put a lot of work and effort into building out this team in such a way that people would absolutely fall in love with them. Now, obviously, the other best part of this movie is Alexei. It is the Red Guardian. He is absolutely amazing. We have to sometimes stop and think, how can you get a very secondary character and make him even more likable? And this movie does that. They do it so well. David Harbour is a freaking legend playing this character. He's absolutely, he's so intriguing in and of itself, because he says things that are just absolutely funny, and you just want to see more of Red Guardian. No matter what, you just want to see more of Red Guardian, and I feel like this movie really does that justice, and really gives him a well-rounded edge, showing that he's not just this big brute, but somebody with a lot of heart and care, and ultimately he plays into the role. And I'm talking about Red Guardian, I'm not talking about David Harbour, but Red Guardian in and of itself, Alexei, he actually does play into that role of fatherhood ultimately in the end. So I mean, it takes Yelena having to tell him, I just wanted someone to talk to. And ultimately, when you see Yelena break down after having the conversation with Alexei, I want to tell you, got me emotional too. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little bit teary-eyed after that conversation, because you feel for that character. You feel you feel something that most of us nowadays feel as well. So it is connecting to us in a big way. And that is ultimately the I wouldn't say the punchline, but the main focus of that character is to see through that Yelena continues on. And he stands on his own as well as easily the funniest character in Marvel right now. And speaking of love and heartwarming, we gotta talk about Bob. We love Bob. Let's just put it that way. This character is the most cute animal kind of creature, little thing that you could possibly come up with. And I'm talking about him in his oh, what's happening? Kind of aloof personality. He is a great character. But he also brings complexity. He doesn't have a whole lot of lines in the movie, but he is someone who brings complexity. People who would probably watch this movie and see this sort of sad character that ultimately doesn't want to be sad, and having that darkness as his greatest enemy and everybody else's greatest enemy kind of gives this character a sort of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of dynamic with him, which is really interesting. And I really hope that wherever they take him further down the line, I hope that they deal him with a lot of heart and care, and hopefully it does take us in the right direction. So I really want to see more of that character. He is badass. We see him in the Sentry suit, which is funny at the same time because he's invulnerable. He's essentially Marvel's Superman, but we're trying to get to the point where he is confident enough to be that version that we want to see, that sort of superhero that we want to see, which is something that he just does not have that confidence. He's just not confident enough. He's a very broken individual, and ultimately giving him those powers kind of amplified those insecurities. So it's really interesting, the concept of seeing a very insecure character be put into this position where, he's a superhero, but he just doesn't feel like it, which is very, very interesting and intriguing for a hero that we're expecting to see, do some really great things, but he's very damaged and kind of, lonely in this pursuit. And that's ultimately the connection we see between him and Yelena in the film, which is fantastic. Now, we also have two other characters with us as well, who kind of have taken a slight backseat in this movie, but ultimately they bring out really great moments in this movie. John Walker being one of them, really cool seeing, this character back again. We ultimately associate him with being like a bad Captain America, like a really crappy version of Captain America. There's even a joke in the movie calling him the dime store Captain America, which is it lands. It's funny. Like when you see it in the movie, when you see it in the theaters and you see the movie, it is funny because it just lands. So he comes in. He is the most grilled character in this movie. Like there's no other character in this movie that has been grilled more than John Walker, and John Walker gets grilled hard sometimes, mainly due to the fact that his wife left him and took the kid with her. Like, he gets grilled, but it's something that ultimately weighs him down, and it makes him realize, like, am I really good? Like that's an internal struggle that we're probably gonna see further down the line in another Marvel movie, but that is kind of the direction we're heading in. And the second character that we're getting as well in this movie is Ghost. Now, Ghost takes a really, really backseat into this story. She's funny. She lands a few nice jokes. Really great character. Wish we could see more of her, I would like to say. Like, she has a very unique set of powers. Mainly the fact that she can just phase through walls and disappear. So I wish we could see more of that being utilized. We do see it utilized in the movie for them to kind of like escape that situation in that bunker, but I want to see more of her. I want to see her, more in action. I mean, we're seeing that they took all these characters with very different. How can I put it to you this way? They are multifaceted characters. And I feel like that's the best way to describe it. They're multifaceted. They're not just like this cookie cutter version of a character. Like, you see Alexei. He's not like Russian Captain America. He's not. He's his own individual self with a lot more complexities. And, honestly, when it comes to this film, these character dynamics are what make this movie what it is. And to me, as I was watching this film, first of all, let's talk about the runtime. They say this movie is 2 hours. I did not feel this 2 hours. I have no idea how this movie is 2 hours. It does not feel like a 2-hour film. It does not feel like a 2-hour film whatsoever. It flies by. The pacing is really good. That is something that I struggle with. A lot of people are like, oh, but then the movie dragged on for a bit. No. in order for the movie to work, you need to have those moments that most people are like, oh, this movie's kind of dragging and stuff. No. It's not dragging. At least to me, it's not a dragging situation at all. It's actually emphasizing a deeper understanding of the character that we are seeing on screen. You know, we're seeing Sentry kind of break down, kind of try to fight this inner demon of his. So you need to have that moment, you know, him with Yelena sitting down saying, you know what, we gotta talk. You know, we have to have this discussion, you know, and she has this sort of almost therapeutic conversation with him, to the point where she is kind of like talking him through how to resolve this issue, being that at the same time she is trying to find that as well within her. And that complexity is so important in this film, because it teaches us to listen to one another, you know, be there for one another. That is the central message of this movie, to not give up on each other, you know. And you know, the main line, I would say, this movie, like the one that pops out the most, is "You are not alone." And I feel like the biggest reason why this movie is a success is because that line alone describes why these characters are working together, why these characters are, you know, fighting now. Instead of like being the villains, being the people who are going to be just crappy all the time, they are now working toward a goal to be something more, be honestly a better version of the Avengers, of themselves, ultimately becoming the Avengers. And that is where I'm going to next. So what is it about this movie that makes it an Avengers movie? Now, I don't think it makes this movie an Avengers movie just because they put up a poster that says the new Avengers. I don't think that's what makes them the Avengers. What makes them the Avengers, at least the new Avengers, because that's what this movie is. It is the new Avengers. I think the movie addresses it really well. You know, Valentina saying that they're the new Avengers, and then ultimately in the end credits, you see moments and like, you know, clippings of, you know, newspapers saying like, oh, they're not our Avengers. These are the Avengers. These are the B-Vengers. You know, they're like the low quality, crappy version of the Avengers, ultimately poking fun at itself. And that's also a great idea to do that, because I know for a fact a lot of people, maybe some of you who are watching, maybe others who are not watching, are probably going to feel the same way, that they're not our Avengers. But I feel like, due to how well it was written, how good the combination of these characters have run deeply into the veins now of people who are watching and ultimately into the MCU, I think it works. It's wild to think that this group of, this ragtag team of people are essentially now Avengers. It's really weird. It's strange. And ultimately it works, you know? And, you know, we know from Yelena's line that, you know, Valentina is not gonna be their boss, because they said, listen, now we own you. So understand that. If we're the Avengers, we own you. Like, there's just no, you know, interference there. So I really did enjoy that fact. I enjoyed it a lot, that we are now getting a new set of Avengers, which ultimately leads me to think, like, what about what's next? Like, what about, you know, the other Avengers? Because, frankly, we do have a Captain America. Now, this new Avengers, they don't have a Captain America, even though they have John Walker, but he's no Captain America. You know, they have Red Guardian, he's no Captain America. And typically, when you think of Avengers, we think of Captain America being the leader. But ultimately, in this case, it's going to be Yelena. But we are ultimately gonna have that conflict. And that conflict leads into, you've guessed it, the after credit sequence, which I have to say was a really good after credit sequence. I think that when you make a great film and you follow it up with a great after credit sequence, that's gold. Marvel, if you are ever going to listen to anything I'm going to say, that is the gold standard. All of your previous movies, and this is me talking to Marvel, I'm not talking to the audience, I'm talking to Marvel itself. Maybe if you are the type of person who is going to go on the internet and clip out this conversation I'm having and make it viral, do it. But I do believe, Marvel, that the key to making a almost $1 billion movie, I know that Thunderbolts is not going to make $1 billion movie, maybe now with, the title change, but what makes $1 billion movie is a great story, great characters, and ultimately us caring for those characters. And then if you can care for those characters and at the end of the movie have us want to see more of them, that's a success. And then on top of that, if you want to do the right thing and deliver a great end to this whole story, even though ending-wise, Thunderbolts kind of ended abruptly, I do have to say, as abrupt that ending it was, the after credits essentially saved pretty much the ending that we wanted. So we get to see at the very end the team 14 months up, like forward in time. There's a time jump of 14 months. They're already at Avengers Tower. The Avengers logo is already different. We see Alexei being funny. We see Bob just chilling. We see, Yelena being the leader of the team. Obviously, we see John Walker wearing a beret. Okay. Hey, dude, he looks good. He looks good with the beret. Better than that, helmet to make him look like Captain America, but who else? Who else to wear that other than Captain America himself and not John Walker? But seeing this team, them talking to each other, them catching up with one another, having this moment in the after credit sequence, and then ultimately dropping the fact that we are gonna finally see the Fantastic Four get into the MCU through some teleporting bridge, some connecting part. I don't know how it's gonna happen, but it is gonna happen. We're gonna see them come visit us. We don't know if it's gonna be because of a cataclysmic event that kills all these people on this planet, which would make Fantastic Four First Steps a very dark movie. But if that happens, and the end of Fantastic Four First Steps is them arriving on Earth and coming together with the Thunderbolts, the new Avengers, I see it as a fantastic connection between the movies. And that, again, is why I think this movie works. You have great characters, great story, the dialogue works, it's funny. For like 80% of the movie is funny, and ultimately you fall in love with these characters, and then you top it all off with a massive cherry on top with that fantastic end credit sequence. Dude, that's what the MCU is about. Like, literally, Thunderbolts, aka the new Avengers, is the reason why I go to the frickin' theaters. This is the reason why I want to see Marvel movies in the theaters, is because of moments like this, of movies that get us excited for what's next. That's the key thing for Marvel. And if they can continue this streak, we are going to have fantastic, and I do mean fantastic, no pun intended because we have Fantastic Four, but we're going to have a fantastic continuation of the MCU with Doomsday, with Spider-Man 4, which is currently being worked on, and ultimately the Doomsday version of Endgame, Secret Wars. Secret Wars is going to be bonkers. It's going to be a movie that I'm more than betting that it will be over 3 hours, similar to Endgame. But let's see how it works out, and I really am excited. I'm so excited for what's to come with the MCU after seeing this film. So if you are like me and you thought that Thunderbolts, aka the new Avengers, was a great film, please tell me down below what you think. In the comments, did you watch this movie? Did you not watch this movie? Did you feel connected in any way to these characters? Do you want to see more of these characters like I do? Are you excited now after this film for where the MCU is finally correcting its course and going back to its roots? Are you excited as much as I am? Because this movie was just absolutely the bomb. It was fantastic. It was amazing. So please put that down below, and while you're down there, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified when new videos go live on this channel. And thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video.
Scrolling through YouTube, same old routine, then bam, movie savant, what a scene. Trivia bombshells dropping knowledge like rain. Forget the dishes, gotta watch it again. Movie buffs unite, savants to place. Subscribe and hit the bell, don't leave a trace. Next level knowledge keeps you in the loop. Savants got the scoop, ain't nothing to recoup.